Digital SAT. This is Mr. Andrew from STG SAT. Happy to go through this with you. All right, we'll have some real question solutions for all of them in due course. For this one, we'll do everything all at once, but when we actually create our videos, it'll be one at a time, so you'll be able to look at them individually. All right, this part here you should memorize. It's not going to change. I'll skip right over that right now. I'm going to zoom in for the purposes of this video. All right. Most logical and precise word. Okay, vocabulary and context is back. This is actually more like from the old SAT, and these are not difficult. You just got to get used to them. All right? This is how they should have been on the new old SAT, actually. In recommending BP's collection, Song I Sing, a librarian noted that pieces by the spoken word poet don't lose their blank nature when printed. All right? Language still has the same pleasant musical quality. Okay. It has the same pleasant musical quality. Interesting. That's good. All right. I'm not going to make you, on the real SAT, I don't recommend that you do all this unless you really find it necessary because it wastes extra time. I'll do it for illustration purposes only. All right. It has the same musical quality. Before I even look at any of the choices here, I am thinking, all right, it's going to have something that has to do with the musical quality. So something like something to do with the sound, perhaps melodious, perhaps sing-song, something like that. And it seems it has pleasant musical quality. So something good, and it has something to do with the sound. Scholarly doesn't fit. All right, melodic does. That's like a melody. Jarring is negative, so that's no good. And personal doesn't fit. Again, do not cross these out on the real test unless you need to, all right? You want to save as much time as possible, all right? So I'll actually undo this. Normally, I would just go through them. I would see it right away that melodic sounds correct. I would plug it back in and see that they don't lose their melodic nature when printed. The language has the same pleasant quality on the page as it does when performed by feet. Yes. So you try that and it works. You quickly try the other ones to make sure they don't work, and then you keep going to the next one. All right. This one says the function. All right. Function doesn't mean we're looking at how it's structured. This has to do with the way it says it, not actually what is being said here. So keep that in mind. All right. Yes, it's people always ask, should you read the question first or the passage first? I like to look on the new SAT. I don't like to look at all the choices. I do like to skim just what it is so I know what type of question it is and what to expect. You can try that and decide for yourself. For me, that works very well. All right, so it says it's from Melville's novel. Okay, I don't really need to know what it is. The stranger stood in the exact place where he had first planned himself. And here's the important part. It's underlined. Singularity impelled a closer scrutiny. All right. So him being a one person says I should look more carefully. And let's see what happens next. There's a lean, gloomy figure. It's talking about all these things and what he looks like. He's dripping with all this type of stuff. All right. So what's the function of this? His singularity means we should look at him more closely. All right. It's talking about we should look at him and then describe some of his features. So let's see what fits here. It elaborates on the previous description of the character. No, it doesn't elaborate. Elaborate means it's say in detail the previous description. It's more about what comes afterwards. So that's wrong. B, it introduces a setting that is described in the sentence that follows. Introduces the setting? Maybe. Introduces sounds good, but setting, not sure about that one. Put it to the side. Put a question mark at best. C, it establishes a contrast with the description of the previous sentence. No, it doesn't establish any contrast. So maybe B, and let's see what D says. D says, sets up the character description presented in the sentence that follow. Sets up the character description. He goes on to describe, so sets up at the description, not the setting, the description of what's going to happen. Yes, D as in David must be the answer. Let's go and move on. Main purpose. What's the main purpose of the text? All right, did you understand the big picture? All right, we'll talk about that more once you get into our SAT class. Big picture, what's going on here? Studies suggested posture can influence cognition. That has to be thinking, but even if you didn't know that, it influences something. We shouldn't overstate this. All right, case in point, here's a study in 14. OB and AA had subject standards sit while making risky simulated economic decisions. Standing is more unstable and cognitively more demanding. Accordingly, they thought, or hypothesized, that standing subjects would display more risk aversion during this than sitting subjects because they're already in a dangerous position, since they wouldn't want to avoid further feelings of discomfort. But they actually found no difference. All right, so although posture might influence your thinking, let's not overstate it. So, don't go overboard thinking that the way you stand affects everything that you're going to do. That's basically the big picture in my mind. All right, it argues research finding are often misunderstood. Misunderstood is a little, that doesn't really sound great. All right, maybe, but that's not really what I'm thinking. All right, the thing is like, don't overstate, not misunderstood. There's nothing to misunderstand here, I don't think. It presents a study and critique the methods. No, it doesn't really critique the methods. C, explains a significant problem in the emergent understanding of postures and how O'Brien tried to solve the problem. All right, how they tried to solve the problem. They made a conclusion. Doesn't really seem to be a conclusion here. Let's look at D. I don't like any of these so far. Let's look at D. It discusses the study to illustrate why caution is needed when making claims about the effects of study. All right, doesn't make too big an assumption. It just says, listen, you should have. It discusses the study to illustrate why caution is needed. Yes, this is exactly what it's telling us. It's also in the first sentence. D as in David must be the answer. All right, let's keep going. In this one, it said when you have C1 and 2, usually it's going to be on the new SAT. It's how does one person think about the other one? All right. Sure enough, how does text 2 mostly describe the view of the people in text 1? Could be the same, could be different. All right. So don't assume that it's different. Usually it's different, but not always. So let's not assume that. All right. 1. What factors influence the abundance of species in a given ecological community? All right. They argue that historical diversity is a major driver. Differences in community diversity across otherwise similar habitats, in this view, are strongly affected by the number of species living in those habitats at earlier time. All right, so it's basically saying differences you see in the community diversity across otherwise similar habitats, according to these people, are strongly affected by the number of species living in the habitats. All right. In this case, I might actually annotate it. All right. Because I'm going to read it again. Strongly affected. I didn't even annotate right. Sorry, guys. But you get the idea. Don't have to waste time doing it. It's just for you. No one's going to look at your notes. Let's look at the next one. In 2010, researchers CC, they created artificial pools, stocked them with diverse things, and others with a single one. So we could test whether you stock it with diverse things or single ones. 4 years, then they periodically measured the species diversity, finding, again, contrary to expectations, that by the end of the study, there was little or no difference in the pool species diversities. All right, so even though they thought they'd see something different, they actually found out, you know what, there was no difference. So whether you start with a diverse pool or not, it doesn't seem to affect where you end up. So based on the text, how would most likely describe the view of the theorist presented in text 2? I'm thinking there's going to be a contrast. Let's see what they say. It's largely correct, but in minor refinement. No, it's not largely correct because they found out, you thought that starting with a more diverse pool creates greater diversity, but that's not what they found. It is not as compelling as a theory, regardless of any experimental debate. No, that doesn't really sound right either. It may seem plausible, but is not supported by their findings. That's exactly what happened. They themselves believed it, but their research did not support that. Let's look at the next one, just to make sure. You should always check all 4 choices. Probably holds true only because it's like the research. No. The answer must be C. All right. Which quote most effectively illustrates the claim? Don't be scared by poetry, okay? It's just like other stuff. You're just going to get the main idea on the SAT. All right. Maybe in the real world, poetry is very different. On the SAT, it's just another way to extract stuff. No big deal. Ghost of the Old Year by J.W.J. He describes an ongoing cycle of anticipation by regretful reflection. All right. So which quote would show anticipation? I got hope, and then it's just regretting. I had this hope, and it's kind of dashed. So let's go through these one at a time. What does this brazen tongue declare? Shameless tongue declare. Just tongue declare. That falling on the midnight air brings to my heart a sense of care akin to fright. Do I see anticipation and then sadful reflection? No, not really. Probably not. Let's look at the next one. The snow has stopped fluttering. The wind sunk to a whisper. An ominous stillness fills the light. A pause, a hush. I don't really see that as anticipation, then regret. No, probably not. It tells of many a squandered day, of slighted gems and treasured clay, of precious stones not laid away, of fields unreaped. There's some regret here, but is there anticipation? Not really. At best, put a question mark. I kind of think it's not, but if you're not sure, leave a question mark here. So you got maybe C and then the rest here. And so the years go swiftly by. Each coming brings ambitions high. I have ambition. I'm looking forward to something. And each departing leaves a sigh. Sigh means, linked to the past. Each departing leaves a sigh. A sigh is something bad, linked to the past. So this is clearly what I see here. Anticipation by regretful reflection. The years go by. They came in with ambitions, and each departs with a sigh linked to the past. It's like, regretful reflection. D as in David. Much better than C. All right, let's continue on here. All right. What effectively uses the data here? You have to read this stuff. And they're not hard, okay? Data questions are really like a hybrid of English and mathematical analysis. Just read through them and don't go through here. This thing you'll see all the time, you can ignore this. They're always going to tell you the rows don't add up to 100, perhaps due to rounding. It's a useless statement. Just gloss over that. GT, Robosaurus, DB, and AH, along with JB, were interested in perceptions of robots' competence. They recruited participants and asked them how likely they think it is that a robot could do the work required in various occupations. Participants' evaluations varied widely depending on which occupation was being considered. For instance, okay, so what they thought about a robot's ability varied quite a bit based on the occupation being considered. Which occupation? So their opinion varied on the occupation. All right, I'm going to highlight that there. That's helpful to see. So which one's going to show data showing that, hey, their opinion varies by occupation? The first one says they think a robot could be a good teacher, and only 30% think they couldn't be a good teacher. This is only one occupation. Can't be it. All right, the next one. We're neutral about whether they could affect it, which is the same percent as neutral. All right, you have two occupations here, but we want to have some variance here, varied widely. This is two. They both thought equally of that, so that's no good. All right, so cross that one off. Next one. 82% somewhat or very likely a robot could be a tour guide, but only 16 thought it could be a surgeon. Now that sounds good. Let's look at D real quickly. Really quickly. 62% it's somewhat or very likely that a robot could be a fire. Only one profession here, can't be that one. C as in cat must be the answer. All right, this one's a grammar question, standard English. Once you see that, again, I like to see that. I don't really like to read all the choices, but you see the grammar, you see the following there, so it's going to be a standard grammar question. According to N.N. of Edinburgh, the reason seeds from a dying dandelion appear to float in the air while falling, and then we have falling, comma, colon, semicolon, is that their porous plumes enhance drag, allowing the seeds to stay airborne. All right, right away I know the answer. All right, the answer is going to be D, but let's go through all these. All right, appear to be float in the air while falling, comma. While falling, comma sounds very suspect. There's something about a comma next to a verb here. I don't know the exact reason. I'm suspicious of this one. While falling with a colon here, you shouldn't have a colon here and then is that. All right, there should be a list or a sentence. That's why I'd cross that one out right away. Falling with a semicolon. You have to have a semicolon is just like a period. If you put a period there, is that they're porous? That whole thing becomes a fragment here. Can't be this one. It's A or D, clearly. Like I told you, A sounds wrong to me. If you're not sure, suppose you're stuck between. This is a good SAT test strategy, all right? If you're not sure and they both sound right to you, in these type of questions, pick the shorter one. The shorter one has no punctuation. Answer is D as in David. That's not the technical reason, but I'm telling you, it works 90% of the time. All right, let's go this one. Oh, more test taking. All right, watch this. You're going to love this. Hope you will. This I learned from Erica Meltzer, the critical reader. She is extremely talented at the verbal part of the SAT. We actually use her books in our class. All right, the student wants to emphasize a similarity between two works. Which choice most effectively uses? All right, so we want to emphasize a similarity between the two works. That's what she wants to do here. All right, that's what we do. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish the goal? Watch this. Don't read the notes. All you need to know is emphasize a similarity between the two works. You can get the choice. Erasure uses discarded objects. This one includes push pins. All right, we want to emphasize a similarity, not a difference. So I'm crossing this one off. All right, two works, but not similarity. That's differences. Tubbs' work has often been shown within the U.S. and abroad. Where's the difference of two works? There isn't. Cross it off. Like many of Tubbs' scriptures, both erasure and home include discarded objects. Erasure uses audio cassettes and all right, there's a similarity here. That looks good. But let's look at D before we choose this. All right, I'm thinking it's C, but let's look at this. Tubbs completed erasure in 2008 and this in 2009. Where's the similarity? There's no similarity. All right, emphasize the similarity between the two works. Like many of them, both of them use discarded objects. That's what the similarity is. I didn't even notice. We didn't even look at all this stuff. I don't know who this guy is, but I can answer the question. The answer must be C. All right, good. Let's move on to the math. All right, these are just samples. And the real test will be much longer, of course. And I'll go through them one by one. All right. You need to memorize all this stuff. I'm not going to go through all this stuff here. But, I guess this part here will be shown to you again. Don't use mixed numbers. There's only one answer. Sometimes in free response, there's multiple answers. You pick one answer and one alone. All right. All right. So there's actually a calculator button right there. All right. Sorry. The calculator button is below my thing there, so you can see that. I wonder if I can use it. Yeah, I can move this here. Good. There's my calculator. That's important. I'm actually going to put the calculator there. I was going to take it off for a sec. Scatter plot shows relationship between these variables. And then it says at x equals 32, which of the following is closest to the value? All right. You can see it here. Test taking. You can actually zoom in, control plus and control minus on the test if you want to see it better. All right, I'm going to zoom back out now. All right, because I want to be able to see this. I can see this just fine. I can see that, but I'll zoom in one way here just for the sake of it. All right, at x equals 32, what's the best fit value on the line? So on this line, what's the value? At x equals 32, it's between 2 and 3. Looks like around 2.5. All right, let's see your choices here. I'll zoom out one more. No, between 2 and 3, 2.5. Yes, clearly it's got to be this. No other choice comes close. C. Next one. 2 nearby trees are perpendicular to the ground. One of these is 10 feet tall and a shadow that's 5. The other one has a shadow that's 2 feet long. How long is the tree? Now, you should be able to do this just by figuring out they're similar. They're going to be similar triangles. All right, they're both perpendicular to the ground. All right, one of the trees is 10 feet tall in the shadow because basically the sun's going to hit them and create similar triangles. That's the key here. So one of them, the height is twice the shadow, so it's 10 over 5. In this case, you're given the shadow is 2, so it must be that the tree is 4. All right. If they wanted to make this really nasty, they could. I see what they could have. They could have given you a nasty, but they could have given you a choice of 1 just to see if you got them scrambled. They were actually pretty kind to you here. All right. Clearly, the tree has to be longer than the shadow because both of them are facing the same sun here. Yes, it's similar triangles. If you really needed to, you could probably create like a picture here. All right. Of one of them. 10, 5, and then like 2, and then 4. All right. Now, you could do that. I'm actually not going to do that here. But the answer has to be 4 either way. On the SAT, the new one, you will not have the ability to write on the screen. You will get scratch paper. So you can still use scratch paper. Obviously, I can't show you scratch paper. That's why I did it on the screen. B. Next one. These choices over here are these. Just memorize these. These are the same things we saw on the original. All right. The y-intercept of the graph is, all right, so you got a line here. Negative 6x minus 32. And the y-intercept is 0, comma y. You plug in x equals 0. You get minus 32. Now, you should be able to do this without looking. If you're really, really bad at math, I suppose, you can plug it in here. But if you need to plug it in, I'm just telling you, if you're in my class, no good. You need to learn this. All right, 32. Yes. And if you go here, you see it here. And then you go here. Click on here. Click on it. Minus 32, either way. All right, that's the answer. Like I said, you should not need the calculator for this one. This is a very simple question. All right, because you're wasting time on a calculator. Remember, you still want to do them relatively quickly. This is a good question, actually, all right? Figure A and B are both regular polygons. The sum of the perimeter, and this one actually I am going to use the calculator, all right? So there are times to use a calculator. I'm not against using it at the right times, all right? You're going to need a little bit of this too, though, all right? So I'll put this down here, all right? All right, figure A and B are both regular polygons, all right? The sum of the perimeter, actually, sorry, you don't need this one. Sorry, I'm mixing them up here, all right? The sum of the perimeter of A and B is 63, and here's the equation representing the situation. X is the number of sides of A and Y is the number of sides of B. What's the best interpretation of the 6? Clearly, it has to do with B because Y is related to B. See that? You can't annotate on the math side, which is annoying. Sorry about that. So if you have to, you can highlight them still. Clearly, it has to do with B. So right away, you can cross out everything with A. All right. But it's that the number of, all right, because they're talking about the perimeter. So, all right, Y is the number of sides of B. And so if Y is the number of sides of the figure, this must represent how long each side is. All right. So it's not the number of sides. Each side has a length of 6 inches, right? Because they're telling you that Y represents the number of sides, just like X represents the number of sides. So read carefully here. All right. If you read it carefully, you might think that, oh, this one's a triangle, this one's a hexagon. But no, X is the number of sides. Y is the number of sides of B. So if this is the number of sides, it must be that 6 is the length of that. All right. Because you're kind of perimeter. Perimeter, in case you forgot, I guess you have to know what perimeter is. Perimeter is not shown on here. Sorry about that. If you don't know perimeter, you need to take our class. Either way, the answer must be A, right? They have a length of 6 because you're going to multiply the number of sides. Okay, good. This is the one I wanted to use a calculator for. All right. Store A sells raspberries for $5.50 a pint and blackberries for $3 a pint. B sells raspberries for $6.50 a pint and blackberries for $8 a pint. A certain purchase of raspberries and blackberries will cost $37 at store A and $66 at store. So here's the point. You're going to buy the same number of raspberries and blackberries at either store. And they're saying, here's how much it costs at one store or the other. That's kind of assume that you understand that. If you didn't understand that, you need to take our class here. But yeah, a certain purchase is telling you it's the same for both of them. How many pints of blackberries in this purchase? So really you need to solve, there's two unknowns here and two equations. So you can solve this. And in this case, you can actually use the calculator. Now, there's an important thing about the calculator, okay? All right. The calculator is, in order to use it, you have to use X and Y. You can't use A and B. So go back here again. We're just going to use A as X and B as Y, okay? So I'll just write that. For A, it's going to be X, and B is going to be Y. All right, just remember that, okay? Otherwise, it won't work. So, yeah. So we'll go here. All right. It says $5.50 per pint of raspberries. All right. Sorry. When I said A, I meant raspberries. So for the variable is raspberries, but for raspberries, instead of using R, we're going to use X. And for blackberries, we're going to use Y. All right? Because I just like the first one's going to be my X and the second one's going to be Y. So now we have $5.50, and I'll show you here again. Oh, that's annoying. Sorry, I can't show you both. My screen's limited. So it's 5.5 times X plus 3 times Y is going to equal $37. See that? 37. That's my first equation. Now I'm going to click on this for another one. And I'm going to say for this one, it's going to be 650X, right, the first one, plus 8, oh, not 87, 8Y, right, because I said Y's for blackberries equals 66. See that? All right, now we look here. What's the intersection of this? You click on your graph here, and right, I say 4, 5. So we know right away raspberries is 4 and blackberries is 5. All right. And what were you asked for? You were asked for blackberries. So we were asked for blackberries. Since blackberries is 5, the answer must be B. Notice the trap choice is here. All right. You could get confused. Raspberries was 4. You can test it and see that. All right. So if you try 4 times raspberries, that equals $22. And then 5 times 3 for the blackberries, 22 plus 15 is 37. And if you try the other one similar, you'll see that 4 times this is 26, and then 5 times 8 is 40, and that comes out to the 66. So the answer must be, for blackberries, the answer is 5. All right, so again, you didn't really need to do anything here, but you did know to use, in order to do this, I would use the calculator. You do have to be able to use X and Y and put them down. That's why I write that down on a page, because they will not let you redefine the variables. All right. The calculator on the SAT is really good. I would use that. How many distinct real solutions does this equation have? All right. Testing a very simple concept. The answer jumps off the page to me, 0. Why? Anything squared has to be greater than or equal to 0. The squares limit can never be negative. Never, never, never. All right. Never. Not this, not this, not this. 0. D as in David. All right. So we'll go here. For this function, I'm going to clear this. For function f of 0 equals 86, and for each increase, the value decreases by 80%. So what's the value of 2? So basically what this is very simple. 86 times. What they really want you to do is 0.8 caret raised to the 2, which is 5504. You could have, if you didn't know that though, you could have just done 0.86 times 0.8 times 0.8, 5504. Either way, what's the value of 2? 5504. All right. Next. That's it. All right. Thanks for coming. Like I said, if you are ever interested in our class, all right, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to cheat here. www.sdgsat. Oh, hold on a sec. I don't even know my own website. Let's take a look. I'll do a different thing here. I'll show you here. If you go to Google and type SDGSAT, you'll find our website right here. And yeah, there it is. Sites.google.com, view SDG. And you can come here, and we have a free class here. You can register. And that's it. Thank you so much for this sample video. Wishing you well. Have a great day.